Okay, hi everybody. We're gonna get started now. And today's demo is gonna be like a little pseudo Eatery app. So you'll have like your Eatery cards and you'll have like filtering that you'll do a little bit of work on. So for today's schedule, we're gonna start by having you like set up Hilt. So like as a refresher, Hilt is kind of what manages dependency injection. So we're doing like model view model this week, and that's kind of like the how we're implementing that within our file structure. So that'll take about 5 minutes. It'll be pretty quick. It's just a copy paste, and then I'll do a quick walkthrough of that, and then you'll work on actually getting data from the view model and displaying it in the view, and then like implementing a little bit of filtering logic. So some tips for today, you want to ask a lot of questions. We're working out with a lot of files now that we have like the model view model like structure. And it's always nice to reference past demos and assignments to kind of like give yourself a refresher on any components. So yeah, you can go ahead and get started. Starter code is in the demo 4 uh, page on the textbook. Okay, I'm gonna start going over the setup. If you're still working, like feel free to keep doing like your doing it at your own pace. So since Hilt is like this is kind of like foundational for this entire demo, it's important that you kind of like have it correct and set up well so that like the rest of the demo like relies on it. So um to start again, this is like very reminiscent of navigation and how we set that up. And it's like kind of a similar idea. Like Hilt is kind of managing a bunch of things over the entire project structure. So we need to like add all these dependencies so that like Hilt can work across the entire project essentially. So to start, we're gonna go to Gradle scripts and add this ID. And then I'm gonna do the next chunk in the app or the app level build.gradle. Sync again. All right. And then Hilt needs like a main activity class. And we kind of just make that in the same, again, in the same root directory as the main activity file. We call that main application. You really don't need to worry too much about what exactly all this is doing. It's kind of all just what Hilt needs to run. Right, to the imports, and then there's this little manifest um, line that we have to add as well. And that goes right at the top. Let's see. Okay. And then the last thing we need to do is annotate our main activity. And then it's just with the Android entry point. And so that's just so that Hilt knows like this is where it's like kind of working, where it starts. And then, yeah. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay, great. And yeah, feel free to keep asking questions later on since like you do need this to like work on the rest of the demo as well. Um, yes, so for the rest of the demo, you're going to be working on first like connecting the view and the view model. And so there won't be any UI work today. It's all provided within the like the starter code. So make sure you kind of go through, like open up all the folders and see like what you're working with. And then later on, you'll get to the like implementing the filter as well. So you'll have about, I think it's 20 minutes to work on this. And then I'll do the walkthrough at the end. And yeah, feel free to ask questions as you go.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Do you also get an import error on Eatery view model? Hello? Hello?
Okay, I'm gonna get started with the walkthrough now. I did make a mistake in the Eatery view model starter code and with the imports. So we'll get to that really pretty soon. To start, I wanted to go over the like file structure we have right now. Um, so again, we're doing model view model. And so in this case, our Eatery repository is our model. It's where our data is stored. And like this one is a little different because it's like dummy data entirely. Usually you'll be like working with whatever the backend gives you, and like using libraries like retrofit. We'll get to that later in the course. So this is a little bit of a dumbed down version where we just have like a list or a function that returns a list to with all of our eateries. So next we have our view model. And again, the view model is where you kind of work with all the data that you get from the model. And then you just change it and however you need to and package it in a way that the view, or in this case, our eatery screen can use it like without much like modification. So you want to keep all the calculations inside the view model. Um, so if we start with this, or also we have this one more folder, which is the components in the UI folder. This is just like extra UI things. The Eatery card is like what we did from the first lecture. And these are just pure UI. So like once we get to, or when you get to like real apps and like actually like big projects like the real Eatery, your files will be like usually split into like folders for each of model, and view. And that's like just to keep everything more organized. But on the smaller scale, like this setup is fine as well. So to get started, I already pasted our starter code into the view model. Again, the imports are wrong, so I went ahead and deleted those. I do need to uncomment this. Import the inject. All right, and that fixes all of our issues here. Okay, so we want to make a lazy column that displays all of our eatery cards within the view. Mm. Yeah, and to kind of go over what's in this Eatery screen file first. So we have the Eatery screen, which is our main like UI. It's like what we're gonna display in the end. And we also have an Eatery screen content, and that's like our where we're keeping the filter bar as well as the Eatery cards. And the reason we split it like this is because the Eatery screen is gonna end up taking a view model as a argument. And again, the view model is like what's providing the data to the screen or the view. Um, and then if you notice, our arguments for the Eatery screen content are UI state and two functions that we'll use for the filters. So all of this, like the UI state and the functions, can be found within the view model. So it's kind of better to import or send the view model into the Eatery screen as one like argument, and then derive the rest of these like other arguments from that view model that we're gonna send in as an argument. That'll make more sense once we actually get there. So to start, we want to make a lazy column displaying the UI state. So we can start by column and okay, vertical arrangement for that spacing between cards. Mm, Set that to the 10 dp. Okay. We uncomment the UI state as well and import that. Okay, so for lazy column, again, we want to have the items within it, and we're gonna pass a list to the items, and that's like gonna cycle through all of the items in the list and display that in the lazy column. So in this case, our list is gonna be, we're gonna get it from the UI state. So like a tip is if you want to look at what kind of like properties of a state of like a thing you have in the code is, you can just put a dot after it. It's like the modifier, and then it'll show you all your options essentially. So we can use, or we want filtered eateries. Okay. And then this is a lambda again. You can give it an arbitrary name. In this case, it is a eatery. And we want to make a eatery card for each of these filtered eateries. So we hover over, see eatery name, location, payment type. Eatery name. Payment type. Done. Is okay. And then that should be good for that. If we check the preview, oh, hopefully that pops up. Okay. And then we see, so for this preview, our dummy data is just a list of two eateries and they both pop up. So that's good. Does anyone have questions about this part? Okay. So next we'll move on to the eatery screen. Again, we want to pass in these two or add these two things to our code. So the first is our view model, which we'll pass in as an argument. Again, you want to import. And from this view model, I guess if we go ahead and take a look at the repository or view model. So we have this data class, eatery UI state, which is what's like storing all the data we need for the view. And you'll also notice that we have these two, or this UI state. And basically that's how we're actually gonna, I guess as the filter, as the whatever's inside the data class updates, we keep track of that here in the UI state. So we only need to call the UI state from the view in order to access all of this data that we need. Um, yeah, so that's how we got the this val UI state by, again, it's the view model.ui state. So as we just saw in the view model. And so this import is kind of annoying all the time. So a hack I guess you can use is just to put a star after the runtime. That's maybe not, I don't know if that's best practice at all, but um, it's an easier way to get rid of the by underline. Oh, okay. So now we're gonna follow this to do. So again, we just need to, right now, this is kind of like placeholder arguments for this eatery screen content that we just finished. And what we want to do is pass in like our real data. So instead of using this like uh, empty UI state, we can use the UI state that we just got from the view model up here. And then we need two functions to that'll describe what the filter does when it's selected. So in this case, if we go back to the view model, we see that there is this function that's defined on location selected. And again, this just takes in a location, one of the location filters, or given one of the location filters, it'll update the location filter value in the UI state to be that filter. So basically, when you press on a filter, it's updating it in the UI state so that I guess the code or the UI knows that that's the active filter. So in this case, we want to use that. This is on location selected. And so we want to have that functionality here. So view model on location selected. Okay, and then since this is a lambda, we can use a it like keyword, I guess, instead of in place of the actual argument, which will be passed in later on. So like this function, like if you notice, we're actually not using it inside the Eatery screen content directly. It's passed into the filter bar and it's used there. So that's why we want like the lambda so that we can pass in the argument later. Okay. And that is all for that. So then we can move on, or I guess, does anyone have questions about this part? Okay. Then we can move on to the implementing the last filter. Um, so unfortunately, I'm not sure if we can actually test this right now. I can try running it and see if that'll work. But since we have like partially built things, we might have to wait till the end to see like the full product. Okay, so in the view model, or I guess it does work. So we have all these cards displayed and then it'll filter by location so far. Arizona on north, yeah. But the now open does not work yet. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is define this new filter in, or this new like value within our UI state so that we can use it within the view. And that's going to be, we'll call it now open filter. And so this is going to be a Boolean because that filter is either pressed or not pressed or active or inactive, meaning we're either looking for all the open eateries or we're not. So that'll be of type Boolean. We can go ahead and set a default value for this argument to be false, so inactive. And then we want to implement the filter logic here. So this part can be a little tricky, just in terms of how the logic works, but basically, if not open filter is true, um, if we do this like not now open filter. So if now open filter is actually true, we know that this is always going to be, oh wait. Yeah, something about like the now open filter is always gonna, it'll be true if it's like not open. Wait, I'll get back to that. And then our other case is where we're looking for all the eateries. So, or no, we're looking for only the open eateries. So that's gonna be we want to check our eatery. So we're passing in this eatery lambda again as a lambda, and so we can check it has a property is open. Okay. Um, so again, so this will be like if we're only looking for the open eateries, and this is the case where we can look for any eatery. So, oh, we connect those using the and because we want to check this case as well as the case for the filters for the location filters. Um, and now we just need to implement the now open filter function. So, or I guess to explain this further, within the filtered, like the filtered eateries is what we're actually using to determine what to display in the UI. So that's why we're doing all this logic here. Again, this is like the example of you want to keep all your logic and any kind of like calculations you're doing within the view model, and you don't want to have any of this kind of stuff in the view. So you can just send your list of what you want to display directly to the view. Um, and yeah, the filter to eateries is just this process list of eateries. So to actually do the function, it's very similar to the on location selected function, similar functionalities as well. So you can just copy that and change it a little bit. On now open selected. Again, this is, we can say it's open, and then we want to set, or this is going to be a type Boolean. We want to set our filter value. So this is like the state of the filter. Now open filter to be this new value. So yeah, basically when the filter is pressed, then this function is called, and then we update our filter with the new value. Yeah, and so I think if we run this now, should be good. Okay. And if we check the now open, oh, I guess not. Let's debug really quick. Oh, we didn't call it. That's okay. So we need to actually call this function again in the last part. Um, we left this argument as like an empty lambda. So it like doesn't do anything basically. So can fix that, new model. And then we use our now open selected and iterator. Okay, now if we try that, now open filters everything. Yeah. So does anyone have any questions about that? Okay, great. And it's 9:25, so I guess that's all for today's lecture. If you have any more questions, feel free to stay behind. We'll be here. And yeah, have a good rest of your day. Oh shoot. Okay, attendance form. Me.